Bullying is a behavior that intentionally hurts, harms, or humiliates another person. And there also needs to be, in addition to that, intentionality. And most definitions also include there's an imbalance of power. And what does that mean? That can mean that a child has an elevated social status, maybe they're physically larger. And so those hallmarks all need to be present for it to be considered bullying. With the advent of technology and kids' access to it, which has happened over the past decade or so, there's also been the unfortunate ability to bully in a new way too, using technology, whether it's through the child's personal cell phone, it could be on a tablet, it could be on a desktop, and it can happen also through gaming. When kids are gaming, it also can happen through texting and social media. And so cyberbullying is defined as when someone is using technology to hurt, harm, or humiliate another. We are, as a society, we're talking about bullying a lot more than we ever have in the past. And part of that is because kids are using technology, and so there's a greater opportunity to bully than more just your traditional bullying that happened in the schoolyard. And it's also been said that cyberbullying is equivalent to the new bathroom wall. And when kids would write something inappropriate on a bathroom stall door, they're now literally doing that in the cyber world, which has then the potential to reach an audience of upwards to hundreds of thousands immediately. Parents often ask the question, how do I know if my child is being cyberbullied? What we encourage is that from a very young age, when your child is first asking for that cell phone, or they're first getting on gaming where they're interacting with someone else, we know that there's the potential for cyberbullying to occur. You want to be having those conversations from an early point in life, just like you would when you send your child out to the mall and you're giving them the parameters of what they can do. For example, when they're going out to the mall, what time do you want them to be home? Who are they allowed to talk to? What stores are they allowed to go into? What happens if they feel uncomfortable in a situation? You want to be having that very similar dialogue with your child when you first give them access to technology. Obviously, for your 6-year-old, the conversation is going to be much different than your 16-year-old. Don't just think because you've had this conversation once that's going to suffice for the next 10 years of their lives. You want to be constantly vigilant as access to different technologies emerge. You want to be making sure that you continue to have that conversation with your child. When a parent realizes that their child is being bullied, what you want to do is first check your emotional reaction, because you're going to feel, you might feel fear, you might feel anger, you might feel scared, but what you want to do is know that you need to advocate for your child, and you can do that advocacy by being supportive of your child. Number one, let them know that they don't deserve what has happened to them, and also, you want to avoid overreacting with an emotional judgment about the situation and not say things like, what did you do to cause this? But instead, be that advocate and give them that emotional support. And the second thing that you want to do is help them plan, help them strategize. We use a 3-step plan to just say what has happened and allow the child the opportunity to share what has happened, to even show you on the phone what has happened. And 2, say, let's figure out together what we can do about this. What are your ideas? What are your thoughts? The child should never have to be the one to fix a bullying situation, but we want to make sure that they're absolutely involved with the solution about what they want to do, what they want to see happen, that you're involving them. And the third thing is to write down then, what are we going to do? I would say the unique thing about cyberbullying compared to that more traditional face-to-face bullying is that there's evidence. There's a tangible trail of what has actually occurred. And as painful as it is to read that as a parent, in fact, we hear that all the time, that when parents actually see what's been written on, or they read it on a cell phone, they have that gut emotional visceral reaction of like, I cannot believe that my child has had to experience this. And what you want to do then is capture the screenshots of that. You want to make sure that you're keeping the documentation, because what it does is it gives you that actual tangible evidence that you're either going to be bringing to school or in some situations even to the police. When your children are coming to you asking for that first cell phone, Make sure that it's an opportunity to have a conversation about what proper cell phone usage looks like, and especially in regards to any bullying situations that might occur. We know that the majority of bullying happens where adults aren't. And so in the cyber world especially, you're probably not going to see children bullying each other on very public sites. Where it's going to happen is through text messaging or social media sites in which adults don't have access. And the other important piece to remember is that kids oftentimes aren't going to tell you that they're being bullied. And the way that you can help them through that is to have that conversation and let them know that, number one, you want them to tell you. Number two, you want them to have a definition of what bullying is, because so often kids don't recognize bullying as such when it happens online. We get the comment, well, it wasn't bullying because it happened on my phone. And kids need to know that cyberbullying is a real thing. And three, you also want to let them know that if they come and talk to you about bullying that's happening online, that you're not going to take away their access to technology. It's a common statement that we hear from kids, and it's probably a misperception as well. But they do need to hear that from you, because it's going to increase their comfort to come to talk to you about what's happening. So as adults and as parents, we have a much different perception of what bullying is. And we're looking at it as what used to happen to us at school, or maybe in our neighborhoods, or maybe even that occasional prank phone call that we got, and where someone said something inappropriate and hung up. Today, it's much more insidious, especially with the advent of technology. There's so many more opportunities to bully, and there's so many more opportunities to do it anonymously through technology. So some of those key distinctions about what bullying was and what bullying is that obviously bullying still happens face-to-face, but there's also so much more that goes underground, and especially it goes underground where adults aren't and where they can't see it happening. And bullying, cyberbullying, the bullying that happens online can happen 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and so it's no longer just happening at the schoolyard. It's happening in the middle of the night as your child is laying in bed and they have their phone tucked under their pillow. They're picking it up, and maybe they're getting a really negative message. Those negative messages are happening day round. And there's also that potential for it to be anonymous as well. And so an attack when you don't know where it's coming from can lead to even greater fear for your child, because when they are attacked while at home on the phone and they don't know who it is, the next day they go to school not knowing who it is. And so it really erodes their self-esteem and their self-confidence when they're questioning, is that person really my friend, or were they the ones that sent that really horrible message to me? And also just that opportunity with cyberbullying. Again, we refer to cyberbullying as the new bathroom wall. And so it used to be that bullying was limited to a small sphere of individuals. But now when somebody puts something out there on using technology, it can literally reach hundreds and thousands of people immediately. And it's really hard to contain, because once something's out there, it can remain out there and it can quickly spread and escalate in a very short amount of time. And I would add that as technology so often happens where adults aren't, it really then becomes so incredibly important for our kids to be what we call advocates and self-advocates. So much of bullying perpetuates itself because of our silence. And so it used to be silence where we would say, when our kids would try to tell us, and we would say, oh, just ignore it, it'll go away. Or if another child tried to tell an adult what was happening, they would get the response, oh, don't be a tattletale. And we want to really erode those misperceptions, because it becomes incredibly important when bullying is happening online that we encourage our kids to tell, that we encourage them to talk about it. It's the only way we're going to know, and especially when it's happening on group chats or social media where adults don't have access, because whatever social media is popular today and adults start to use it, it becomes very uncool for kids to use it, so they go find the next social media app or avenue, and they'll find it quickly because they are on their phones all the time. They know those places and they move as a group very quickly. As parents, we're raising the next generation of students who have incredible access to technology. We oftentimes will say with bullying, and if it was as simple as ignoring it, would make it go away, they would do that. But bullying can't be ignored. It needs to be addressed. It needs to be dealt with. As parents, as educators, we need to recognize that bullying in this day and age looks much different than what it did when we were growing up. And with the evolution of technology and the ability to bully, using social media, text, chats, images, if they are experiencing it, we need to be well versed in what we can do to help them prevent it and address it. And we do that through education, we do that through conversation, and we do that through taking action. So often what we hear from parents when they are contacting us for help is we'll ask them, what happened? And they'll share with us that their child told them that somebody was being mean to them online. And that's as much information as the child shares with the adult. And what actually has transpired is that they've been getting messages through maybe text or posts on social media that were the essence that were saying, "You're such a loser, nobody likes you, you should just kill yourself." And that's the reality of it. But on the other end, the child's just saying that some kids are sending mean messages to me. So if that is what your child is saying to you, you need to find out what exactly is happening, because you as a parent aren't reading this, aren't seeing it. And so once parents find out the reality of just how horrible these messages are and they read them themselves, you have a much better perception of what your child is actually going through. Kids have such a tendency to minimalize what is actually happening to them, and it becomes incredibly important for us as adults to be asking more questions, to be asking them for the full story, to be talking to them and making them comfortable in telling you. I saw this meme a couple days ago with an old rotary dial telephone, and the receiver was placed off the hook, and it was set next to the phone so that when anybody called, they were going to get a busy signal. And I thought that was incredibly ironic because, growing up, kids would occasionally prank phone call and say inappropriate things, and it was pretty easy to shut them down. As simple as taking your phone off the hook. Today, when kids are carrying around their cell phone with them at 24/7, not so easy to do, because they are connected through social media, they're connected through texting, they're connected through phone calls. And when someone chooses to hurt, harm, or humiliate another person, they can be relentless, and they can do that through a variety of modalities. So even if you're shutting down one, maybe you have deleted them from your text list so they can no longer call you, they'll find another way to get at you. And those are the extreme stories that we hear where it's a group of people attacking another one with lots of text messages. But I also don't want to diminish the importance of one horrible message that somebody can get, because what happens when you pick up your phone and you read that message and it's there, it's living, it's in front of you, and kids internalize it and they think about it and they perseverate on it. And oftentimes we hear about how kids go back to that message over and over and they read it. And so it's not like it's just happening in the moment. It's there, it's living, and again, kids rehash it, they go back to it, and it becomes even incredibly more devastating when it's there written, when there's something tangible in front of you.